Welcome to the Kids Biz Podcast, your go-to source for unlocking the secrets to success in orthodontics and pediatric dentistry. Each episode, we bring you expert guests who share innovative strategies and insider tips to help your practice thrive. Whether you're looking to enhance patient care, boost your marketing, or stay ahead of industry trends, we've got you covered. Join us on this exciting journey to elevate your practice and make a lasting impact in the lives of your young patients. Let's dive in.
Well, hey, so today we are talking all things overhead, inventory management, efficiency. And so we've got Nick from Orthodontic Details here. Nick, say hey to everybody.
Hello, everybody.
So we are going to pick your brain on everything efficiency so that as we look at the next couple of years, I think Dr. Ashley wants to talk, tariffs. We want to talk all of it. So,
awesome.
So before we dive in, I just wanted to share that, so Nick, you and I met a while ago. Actually, we were just talking that kind of the same time frame that actually I met Dr. Ashley. But I had first been introduced to Details through Dr. Biggs. And it was back kind of when you guys had created this marketplace, and it was kind of the first, Details 1.0. And we had a pretty frank discussion about what would work, what wouldn't work. And he kind of went back and went to the drawing board, and then you came on board. So just briefly give us kind of an overview of what you do.
Sure. Happy to do it and glad to be here. Davin's been super helpful for us right from the start. Just obviously a really nice and charming guy, but also just very direct about here's what I think what would work, what wouldn't work, et cetera. And at the time when I first met you, the only orthodontic appointment I had was a sales meeting with Dr. Biggs. I knew nothing about orthodontists, in the industry early on. My background is I was an officer in the Army, spent 10 years consulting Fortune 500 companies and startups and how to launch new tech. And so, when Dr. Biggs came with this idea of like an Amazon for orthodontics, I saw, a lot of the indications that there could be an opportunity there, but I didn't know anything about the industry itself. So I naturally went into learning mode. So talked to dozens, hundreds of offices, actually dozens of suppliers, and people like you who were like, to my surprise, they were interested in there being something like a Details. Maybe not exactly what his original idea was, but something along those lines. And so, when Dr. Biggs first brought it up, he's like, I want you to build an Amazon for orthodontics. And we were like, it's cute, doctor. You think you can just come in here and write a check and, have this really cool, big, bold idea. It's a lot harder than you think. So we tried to talk him out of it originally. And to his credit, he's, every bit as humble as he is super intelligent, hungry, and passionate. And so I saw something in him and in the company that I got permission from my consulting partners to leave, co-found what is now Details. And then those partners invested. And so that started a learning journey of, okay, well, why is there so much pain in orthodontics? What is different about even ortho than other healthcare specialties? And obviously the more general pedo market is comparable to ortho in a lot of ways when it comes to supplies. So that's kind of how the journey got started. And I'll stop there unless you want me to just keep going.
No, that's great. That's great. Well, I think it's a great lead into kind of one of the first questions is, what mistakes on the ortho and even on the ped side do you see practices making with, inventory management? Because I would assume that you've learned a lot about what they're doing wrong and what they wish they were doing different. And so can you just kind of give us some, let's talk about that for a little bit and then maybe how can they be avoided?
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, so at this point we are actively in over 185 practices, 300 offices. We've helped process and manage the orders, of practices in all over North America. We've got a couple in Australia and millions and millions of dollars of orders where we were responsible for making sure the order flowed smoothly to the supplier and everything was good. And so I've seen a lot at this point. Thankfully, Carrie Ann from our team is our VP of Practice Success, and she led the procurement team at Smile Doctors previously. So I sleep much better at night since bringing her on. She's really the expert on the procurement piece of what we do. And so between just all the practices we've worked with and her and our concierge team, the main thing I've learned is that for most doctors, this is kind of like internal bleeding. Margins are generally pretty great in orthodontics and even in general dentistry, such that it's not every day that you're feeling some sort of financial pain and you're like, ooh, we got to look for a way to be more efficient with our supplies or save money. Now, it does happen, you do feel that pain at some point, but for a lot of doctors, it's like internal bleeding where you've got two things happening. A staff member that you trust and is pretty high on the totem pole in terms of your staffing team that you trust to spend thousands of dollars on supplies. And that person is the type of person who's quick to raise their hand and be like, ooh, yeah, I'll do that. Like, just add that to my plate. And, as Dr. Ashley, I'm sure you know, like when you have a staff person like that, you're like, great, I will feed you. Here's more responsibility. Here's more to do, which is awesome. We, obviously should do that. At the same time, that person's also not super likely to be like, hey, I'm burning out, or hey, I'm stressed out about this order, type of thing. These are typically the people who are in this role who their main job is clinical. They're supposed to work with, patients. And
they're typically
so when you give them
lead because they're a strong person.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Which makes sense because they also, it can't really be an admin person because they don't a lot of times understand the supply side, like the clinical, side. And so then what happens is this internal bleeding where that person's kind of burning out and maybe it, but not as well as you would. And so the job, especially in ortho, of ordering all of these supplies is crazy because the typical practice when they start onboarding with details is ordering from 15 or more suppliers over the last 6 months. And each of those suppliers they're ordering from is a different ordering channel. It's a different website. It's a different rep. It's a different, we've had people that are faxing orders still, believe it or not. And so just imagine the work, on the plate of that staff person. And it can be easy to say, oh, just use a spreadsheet, or, oh, if you're just efficient. Well, it's not that easy. And so what we do as details is give them one platform where they can order from any supplier. We're agnostic, and they get a concierge from our team who has clinical experience to help them when something's back ordered. And so the first piece and like the thrust of what, like the heart and soul of what we do, Davin, to your question about what are kind of common things people do wrong, is that the doctors it's like out of sight, out of mind. And so they're not aware of how much it's impacting the team. And that can manifest in either burnout in that staff member or someone just milking the clock. Believe it or not, I know this is impossible to imagine. There's a lot of staff that love to be at the computer price shopping on 17 different websites. And so it can kind of just be like this hidden burn of like time, effort, energy, efficiency, et cetera. And so those are kind of the two ways from a personnel perspective where when it's out of sight, out of mind, as long as stuff is showing up, a lot of times doctors are just not even thinking about it, which frankly, I wouldn't be either, right? In the grand scheme of all the things you have going on, Dr. Ashley, this should not be at the top of your list, right?
Yeah. And like from a doctor perspective, another thing is when that lead leaves, it is so stressful because, ever since I'm a startup that opened post-COVID and the workforce post-COVID, old doctors, they've had the same staff for like the last 20 years. If you're a young doctor like me doing a startup, people will leave over $1 raise and you're like, you're barely doing the minimum, why would I give you $1 raise?
Right.
But they'll leave you over it. And then you're left with a lead that maybe not is ready to be a lead. And then all of a sudden they're doing your ordering. And like you said, you're trying to teach them from 15 different things that you didn't even really know perfectly how you did it because you left it up to your strong lead before. Mm-hmm. So when Davin told me about your guys' platform, I was like super interested to hear more just because this is a really real pain point of especially the young doctors that are kind of like our audience, that are, trying to do startups and trying to be efficient with our time. Probably even a lot of doctors when they begin, they're ordering themselves and clearly wasting a lot of efficient time. And so, yeah, that was another pain point. Does your platform do anything with pricing? How does that work? Like, is
Yeah.
there any AI or any automation that's in your platform? How does that work?
Great question. Yeah, that's the core. So first and foremost, we're a technology company more than anything. That's my
Okay.
background. We have our own developers in-house that are building this platform directly based on the feedback of our customers. And so there's features on the site that, Lauren from Depew Orthodontics, who's a staff member, like drew on a napkin and then we built. So everything that we do is built for oral health. So, so that the process and the way that ordering happens in these verticals is different than general healthcare and other verticals. And so pricing is one that I've learned a lot about over the last few years. This kind of gets to that second mistake. And that is that a lot of doctors, so they hand this to someone that they trust, right? Mm-hmm. Which is good. But then they also sign up for a buying group. And then a year and a half later, they sign up for another buying group. And when we do the onboarding process, when I ask someone who is, a part of a buying group, okay, great. And what do you guys order that buying group gets you a discount on? 8 times out of 10, sometimes 9 times out of 10, they have no idea. Right. And you ask the staff and they're like, oh, well, I think we order this thing from them. And so buying groups for doctors is kind of like, it scratches that mental itch of like, oh, I'm doing something to save money on supplies. It's like an insurance policy, right? But it's like, but you got an insurance policy for the car you were driving 4 years ago. Like what are you ordering today? And so what that leads to is, okay, the doctor signs up for a buying group. They hand it to the staff person, say, okay, order from this buying group. Right. And then over time, that just doesn't happen, right? They might start ordering something and save a little bit of money early on. But then the natural result is them ordering from 17 different suppliers, because that buying group is offering typically more than just one option for each category a lot of times, even if it's 2. And then what happens is the staff member is then getting emails from those companies or emails from other companies where it's like, hey, I've got buy one, get one,
this promotion,
get one off.
Exactly.
Yeah, like a promotion that's not a company from the buying group, but hey, that price is better today. Right. So I'm now going to switch to that supplier for this.
And then
the
promotion ends and now you're paying more than what you did. And yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what we see happening time and time again. We've got practices that when they sign up for details, they're a part of 5 buying groups and they're like, threw their hands up. Like, I don't know what it's like a Jenga, like tower. Yeah. They're like, well, if I pull this one out, then I lose that benefit. But if I pull this one out, then I lose that benefit. Like, what the hell are we doing? Like, and the reason it is that way is because, buying groups promise the world, but then it's on the practice to do all the work. Right. And so what we've decided as Details is two things. One, we're agnostic. So we don't care what buying groups you're a part of. Like, you are welcome here. We will help you figure out, okay, if you're a part of 5 buying groups, like, let's maybe shrink that down, right? You probably don't need to be a part of 5 different buying groups. Or maybe you do need to be a part of this buying group you're not in today, whatever. That is a nearly impossible challenge for a doctor and staff to figure out, because there's so many, and they all promise the best pricing. And behind the scenes, it's a flip of a coin, right? As to who's actually getting the best price. And so we've decided to do 2 things. Like I said, one, we're agnostic in terms of who the practice orders from, both the buying groups and the suppliers themselves. And then 2, we directly negotiate with suppliers on practices' behalfs. And so there's times when we're able to negotiate a better deal on a certain, category, but it's not as good in another category with that same supplier. And so we help the practice say, hey, so here is a buying group that, just based on your volume, you should be working with them. A good example of this is POP, Premier Orthodontic Practices. They've got the best Damon bracket pricing in the market. And so if you're an Ormco doctor, there's really no world you shouldn't be on there. And for us as a platform, like, why would I not tell my customer that? Like, my customer is not a buying group or a supplier. We work for the doctor. And so we try the best we can to kind of create that transparency for the practices. To your point about AI, because we're a tech company, there's some really cool stuff that we're doing. So we use AI to analyze all of the purchasing data that we have, as practices are placing orders, to then identify ways for practices to save money. And so then that's delivered through the platform as suggestions, as well as through your concierge. So each practice has a concierge from our team. Okay. So using AI, pricing's tough, but we try to help you work through it.
Yeah. So say that would it, I'm just trying to think of my bond. If I'm buying it through a certain company and it's X amount of price, and then your data is telling you, oh, these customers are buying the same brand at this company for this price, does that suggest to your other customers, hey, you should be buying it from here? Or how does that flow work?
So it's so a mistake, I would say, that existing platforms that are more marketplacey have, especially ones that are in peds and more in the general market, is effectively they give you a platform for you to shop. Mm-hmm. And so as a result, staff members, doctors, et cetera, jump onto this platform and they're digging around and searching through and, ooh, it shows me these two things next to each other. The reality is that those are a handful of suppliers' catalogs just piped into the platform.
Right.
So it's not really a mirror for that practice's pricing with the grand scheme of all the people that they could be working with. And so the reality of procurement in the oral health world is that there's just manual work that has to be done. Someone needs to grab a shovel and dig. And that's why we have not just the platform, but you get a human from our team. And so over the time that a practice is working with us, you have a concierge from our team who is working on, okay, so they're using this bonding. They love it. But it's being discontinued. So what is an alternative that a lot of our other doctors love? Hey, Dr. Ashley, here's an alternative that doctors love since that one's being discontinued. And by the way, here's the names of 5 doctors that said they'd be happy to talk to you. That's the service level that we want to bring. Got it. We're not necessarily trying to make you switch anything necessarily, right? Our goal is just to help you accomplish whatever you're trying to accomplish. And so there's times where what will happen is that a doctor will maybe ask that question and then their staff goes and finds it cheaper, right? Mm-hmm. But then what they forget is that they have a free shipping threshold with that previous supplier. So now you're paying double on the shipping. And so those are this is the calculus that just takes, it's not going to take a human for that much longer because of the tech that we're building. But I was just going to say,
we always going to have a concierge? Yeah. Because at some point, I feel like AI will be our concierge. It just depends on, at what point that comes.
You'll always have a concierge because they'll just do different things. Where we ultimately want our concierge team is sending you flowers because you just had a baby, right? Knowing that the staff person that's in charge of ordering, it's their birthday coming up. Helping them in more strategic spending. But no, absolutely not. There's no world where a staff member or a doctor should spend hours price shopping different products. What are we doing? And so, so between AI and just the platform that we've built, we're hoping to get to an easier world for practices.
If you're like most orthodontic and pediatric dental practices, you're probably struggling with oral hygiene compliance, observation conversions, and an increase of shoppers, especially among young patients and their families. In my practice, Wild Smiles makes converting observation and phase 1 patients easy. Young patients and their shopping families value a personalized experience. When I first added Wild Smiles to my practice, they made inventory and reordering easy, and they even led our team through simple instructions on integrating Wild Smiles into our existing systems. So we saw an immediate success. Grow your early orthodontic patient population with Wild Smiles to combat boring traditional braces and expensive phase 1 aligners. Check out wildsmilebraces.com/doctors to choose the customizable easy start kit that's right for your practice. Mention code KidsBiz to save 10% off your first order.
I mean, for every practice, human capital is their number one expense. And so doctors, it always, like with our business, whenever we talk to doctors that are placing their own orders, I'm like, not only is your time more valuable than that, but your team's time is more valuable than that to grow the business. Obviously there's some amount of work that needs to be done internally to manage that, but the human capital that it takes to manage this you should not be using your team for that. So that's where and we're big customer service focus. And so that's where, I really think that the practices make a lot of mistakes is investing too much human capital into their procurement process.
Yeah. That's well said. And, Dr. Ashley touched on it earlier in that then what happens when that staff member leaves? Because then all of that institutional knowledge about what you order, which comes in the form of often a binder, a spreadsheet somewhere that you can't find, login and passwords, like on a, sticky note somewhere in their desk, the pricing you're supposed to get, the discount you're supposed to get, when that's all just in one person's mind, it's not fair to them, right? For them to have to keep all of that, on their shoulders. But also, like, when staff turns over, what are you going to do, right? You're kind of back to the drawing board. So that's where, again, the concierge helps because you have a human that knows your preferences and what you're ordering, and it's all inside the platform. So that's addressed.
So whether a practice is using details or not, I know that like optimal inventory levels are a huge thing that we see with our clients. It's a huge thing that we see just with other products. What strategies would you suggest to a practice just that they could implement even on their own to help kind of create this optimal inventory for various kinds of products? I mean, are there any strategies that you would suggest there?
Yeah, absolutely. And anything I say here is coming from, if it's good, it's coming from Carrie Ann and not from me, right? I am the business guy, leader guy, tech guy. So, but what we've seen over and over and over again, 185 practices using the platform. So at this point, I think I've seen just about everything. What we coach practices, whether they're using details or not, is quarterly inventory counts ideally. So if you can do a quarterly inventory count, what do you have on hand? Then looking at how much you've spent on supplies, how much supplies you've ordered, and then as close as you can get to quarterly ordering as possible for the products where that makes sense. So two things there. So consolidate, limit the number of times that you're having to do inventory counts. 2, limit the number of times that you're actually submitting and placing orders. All of the time, practice, when they're starting the process with details is, again, they submit an order on a Wednesday, but then Friday they get a free shipping email. So then they submit another order. And then the next Thursday, because they're not really keeping track of anything, they submit another order for something else. That's the kind of stuff that, again, if you're a staff member, like, what else are they going to do? Often the person in that role, their job is to order, and they're doing it based on, spot checking, right? And if someone pulls something from back storage or back stock and doesn't tell them, their eyes aren't on it, right? And so then now they have to submit another order. And so I guess core feedback here would be get a handle around that process. Like, what are the things that you can do? A tag system is a good example where you literally manually create tags for all of the products that you have that you go through, fairly frequently. And then when any staff person sees that product is running low, grab the tag, put it on the desk of the staff member or wherever they do the ordering so they know it's time to reorder it. So that tag system is a good, just like gut check, quick and dirty kind of way to make sure you don't run out of anything. But that's kind of like a flare, right? It's like, oh, hey, by the way, we're basically out of stuff. So like order it, which is not
we do that ideal. As like last resort, like, oh, flag.
Right. You're right.
Like order this now.
That's right.
But yeah.
And that honestly, that is the most sophistication for for most practices. Most practices aren't even doing that. But that is a really good way to ease into just kind of like, hey, what can we not do as a practice? We can't run out of supplies.
Yeah, my issue with my staff is, like you said, they're a back clinical person that also does it on downtime. So once a month, I have her go through the list of checking our inventory to order. But by the time she goes through the list of checking it to actually sitting down and ordering it, she's like, it was 3 days later because I was seeing patients and now it's not correct anymore. And so that has kind of been our pain point of like, okay, she's taking the time to go through to check off what we have, what we need, and then it's not accurate by the time she's able to sit down and do the ordering on like our like our more admin days. And so how could we make that more efficient? Because it's also killing me. It's killing her. You know, she's like, I don't even like going through because it's not accurate by the time I sit down.
Yeah. And that's really good anecdote for these type of people. They don't like to suck, right? Yeah. And a lot of times they're naturally in a position where it's hard not to suck, right? It's hard not to run out of stuff or for the inventory count to now be off because someone didn't tell them something. So what we want to do is empower them to feel like a superhero, right? And at Details, every time we onboard a practice, you know, especially if the doctor's not there, we tell the staff member, we want you to look like a rock star in front of the doctor. Because that's what they want too, right? They want to be great at their job. And so there's things that you can do to kind of promote that. I would say in that instance in particular, either just having a dedicated time where they do that, where it is not free time, it is like carved out every month or whatever, every 2 weeks. This time she's not seeing patients, right? It's not just like when she has the open space, it's being proactive about creating that open space. An alternative path would maybe be split that responsibility a little bit. Maybe there's someone else whose job is the count. So they do the count and she does the ordering so that hopefully there's some overlap there, or at least they can do it on Thursday and then Friday is when she's doing it, or, you know, however it works best for your schedule. Something like that, where it's like, okay, well, she's definitely not going to have time to do all the inventory counts and the ordering. So maybe we just split that up. She's seeing a patient now, you know, for the next, you know, she's working with patients. This person's doing the count. So that would be another option. And then of course, the third option would be Details Dots. So this is what we just launched, which is, it makes managing inventory as easy as you just scan, tap, and then you can relax because you'll know you'll be notified when you're running low. So because the practice is ordering everything through Details, we know all of their products. So you don't need to manually create tags or anything like that. You just click generate dots and it's generating these QR codes with the product information and a QR code for that product. You just put that on, every Avery label, paper, like stickers. And then you just put that anywhere that you keep backstock. So you can then either have like a central iPad that people use, or any iPhone or smartphone can be used to scan that product not when you're taking like a box off the shelf, but when you're taking 10, 15 boxes out to put on the floor with patients, you just scan it, you tap to indicate you're taking 10, and then you move on with your day. That will then turn yellow when you're approaching your minimum. And you can easily just add more to the cart right there from that interface. And so for the practice that wants to have a good handle on how much supplies do we have on all of these products, and you might only really need to do that with 2 categories or 15 products, because the rest, like, you can just handle with your typical ordering process. But for critical, like mission critical supplies that if you don't have this, brackets. You can't see patients. Like it probably makes sense to know how many you have, right? There's a doctor who told me he has a Ferrari on the shelf because his staff was so scared to run out of stuff. They just ordered as much as they could. Right. And so what we want to do, again, all of this creates friction, chaos for the practice. We want to bring peace of mind. Right. And I know you as a doctor want to do that too, right? You want your staff to love where they're coming to work. You don't want them to leave, right? You want to be there as long as they can. So those are just a few suggestions for that. Yeah.
So
I feel like, oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead. No,
go
first,
ahead.
Well, so kind of along this line, what product categories should you be taking inventory of maybe more frequently, and then maybe what ones should you be reordering quarterly? And the reason I ask is, we work with a lot of practices that are like, well, I don't want to carry a lot of inventory
Sure.
because they're just looking at it because they don't want to put the inventory in the office. But then those same practices get frustrated when inventory runs low because they're not carrying enough. So maybe help us understand what groupings of products should we be maybe counting every month and ordering more frequently and keeping less inventory versus ones that maybe we're counting less frequently and keeping more inventory of and and counting every quarter or whatever.
Sure. Yeah. If there's something I've learned through this process of working with doctors is that every practice is different. There's some practices that they do order the brackets at the start of the year and then it's delivered, they submit the order, then it's delivered across, a year's time or something like that. There's other practices that are like, it's chaos. They're just ordering whenever they see stuff is low. And so really as a practice, you have a couple of different options. Either A, throw people at it. So just have people constantly doing counts, frequently ordering, et cetera, which is not ideal. You can order a lot of stuff, right? So then you never run out, and that's less, human capital, but it's more, I almost said real capital, like humans are
upfront.
Real too. Yeah. It's more upfront monetary spend, right? It's cash. Yeah. And so then three, like you can optimize by outsourcing this to, experts. And so that can either be, consultants or a platform that has something like, a concierge to help walk you through that. Yeah. So the way that we handle that for each practice is we do an interview with them during onboarding and as they're doing their order planning to just know where they fit in that kind of spectrum of doctors. Again, there's some doctors that want to do, big orders, and then there's others that don't. And so from a category perspective, it kind of depends on just their, how quickly they're going through products and even some of the types of products that they use. Stuff like gloves, like disposables, if you can get a good deal on it, like order it, right? You're going to use it. Brackets and wires you don't want to run out of, but also like those numbers can add up pretty quickly. So I would say, it just kind of depends on the practices, their storage, their preferences in terms of how they go about using products and how often they're tracking things. There's really nothing that a practice needs to order. And I guess maybe this is the bigger theme is that like what you asked is a really smart question when for most of the practices, they would love to just not order every week, right? Much less order these things quarterly and these things, on a monthly basis or whatever. And so it just depends on the practices, how they're practicing clinically, but then B, what's their energy level and willingness to actually think through a structured plan based on the questions that we would ask them.
Great.
Let's talk a little bit about like budget. So, everyone has their goals for budget. And then I feel like when it comes to clinical supplies, of course we have an ideal budget based on our KPIs and percentages of what we're collecting. But really, you have to order what you have to order. Like you're not going to not order brackets and not start a patient because, I've ordered too much this week. Like we're above our budget. And so that's kind of like a thing that I see in my office. What KPI do you guys tell your clients of what your clinical supplies should be costing? For us, we say it's 8 to 12%. I don't know if that's what you're sharing with your customers as well.
Yeah. Yeah. There's definitely a spectrum. You've got your ideal people, or you've got like your I would say OCD people who get it down to like 3% or something like that,
Really?
And there's been a few. Yeah. And I would say if you've got it there,
I guess if your collections
you're
are
probably
really high,
doing it for a hobby. Yeah. Right. Yeah. But to me, that's like more like you just enjoy that game. Like that's because if you spent the time and effort to get it down to that level, like it's probably because you enjoy that process and that's fine. You can do that. For most practices, for most doctors, like it's opportunity cost, right? Every second that you are thinking about optimizing down from 7 down to 4% or whatever, you're not spending with new patients, with staff, like building the team, with your family, on investment opportunities and stuff you could do outside. So if there's certainly a level at which, hey, we're probably over optimizing here, just in the grand scheme of the things that you as a doctor could be doing. Now, that said, most practices are not anywhere near that, right? So the 8 to 12% that you said is good. We try to get practices to 5 to 8%, 5 to 10% is like an ideal world. And it can be difficult for practices to really get those numbers and it be correct and efficient, just when they're generally, because you think about you're paying 20 different people. It can be really difficult to, let's say you did a bulk order for something in Q3 of last year, and now you're running low. Well, the last 2 quarters, like you haven't even thought about that. And so now there's a new quarter come, oh crap, we need to order more of that thing. So that throws off the budget again, right? That's where just getting your hands around it, using a platform like Details can be helpful. But for most practices, where we start is not necessarily an ideal number. It's just, it's improvement, right? So if you're at 20%, let's get you to 15 or, 10 to 15.
So do you see with onboarding different doctors that they're always going to be more efficient and they're going to be spending less?
Like just because of their personalities, or?
No. When you onboard them with Details, are they always going to see a decrease in what they're spending?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And even if you didn't believe me when I said that, like what gets measured gets done. Right. Okay. And so when we're paying attention to a process where, like before Details, you've got a busy staff member who's clinical, working with patients, and they are trying to order thousands, sometimes in ortho, it's tens of thousands of dollars a month on supplies, right? There's no world they can do that perfectly. And so then when you bring in a technology and service like Details, where all of that stuff that previously was spread across 15 suppliers is at the start, maybe even still going to 15 suppliers, but through one filter that we can look at, then it changes the perspective of both the staff and the doctor, because now it's like, oh, we're looking at it, right? We can see it. We can see the spend, and just, oh, we ordered 17 times like last month. That's probably more than we need to, right? And so that technology just kind of brings attention and shines a spotlight on, something that's important, which is that spend and efficiency. But then you also have a human from our team who is not price shopping every order or, like constantly like Googling for the best pricing, but that is paying attention to your ordering and clinical strategy. And they know, oh, summer's coming up. Like they've not submitted any like larger orders to kind of get ready for that. Maybe we should prompt that. Or, hey, let's get you shifted from ordering monthly to quarterly, right? Jill Allen's and her associates, like the consultants that she has, have sent some people to us recently just for that reason, right? It's like, hey, we'd love to move to quarterly ordering. Like, let's just start there, right?
Right.
And so we try to meet the practice and where they are and say, okay, where are you today? And then what do we need to do to get you to where you need to go? And then, the end result of that is that practices using Details will absolutely save money on supplies, hard cost dollars, not just time, because of that efficiency and that strategy that's put in place. And on top of that, then we're also directly negotiating with suppliers. And so that 1-2 punch is kind of hard it's hard not for a practice to not just save time and not just save money, but again, we try to get to the soul of this, which is the peace of mind of the doctor and the staff member. Because you could sign up for 50 buying groups and still your life is chaos, right? We're really the only ones that are focused on peace of mind and the savings.
Nice.
One thing
go ahead, Davin.
I was just going to make a comment really. In my 20 years in this business, it is amazing to see the reactionary kind of part of these ordering folks in the offices where, like you said, they see a deal on free shipping, or they see a deal for a minimal discount on what they are already ordering. And at the end of the year, they have so much money invested in additional inventory that it doesn't really matter if they saved the $15 on shipping.
Right.
And so the doctor comes in is like I've got a Ferrari on the shelf, and it was all because they saved, $45 in shipping cost over the course of the year. And I think doctors are conditioned to think that way sometimes too, because they're so focused on getting a deal, but they don't really think about the bigger picture in terms of how much money's actually sitting on the shelf. So anyway,
or
that's more
6 months later, that deal's no longer and you're paying it, but you thought you were still getting the deal. So yeah, I that's kind of where I feel like our office is at, is like, oh, you sign up and then you get so much for this free. And then you have that in your mind that that's the price you're paying. And then you start doing some digging and you're like, oh, wow, it's already been X amount of years. Like that deal's gone. Wow, we are paying way too much for this product. And so, yeah, it's just like you said, it's a lot for the doctor to always be digging. And sometimes the staff member will do the digging, or sometimes they're just not qualified depending on who you have.
Yeah. Well, we're right to your point, and to Davin, your point. A lot of practices price shop, and that's kind of it is reactionary, but it's like, it's their way to save money. And so they're thinking tactically, not strategically. So tactically, they're like, okay, I'm going to price shop and I'm going to find the best deal, right? Whereas strategically, it's like, okay, well, you could order this product from 4 different people this year, right? And save a little bit of money each time. Or that same product from one person, commit to spend, leverage someone like us to negotiate, a better price, and save the same amount you would have by, jumping 4 different times, which then means you're quadrupling the number of sales reps and emails and promos that you're getting, which then just further adds to kind of like the flywheel. Yeah. And the work. And it's hard to, that can be tough too when you're a part of multiple buying groups, because the kind of open secret is that pricing goes up, right? There are not I know is more transparent about this, but most buying groups will not tell you that your pricing went up. They will just tell you that you have the best price, right?
Right.
Well, best price relative to what? A, and then B, there's no way for them to know that, right? There's no way to know what's actually happening in the market. And so it can be really tough for a doctor in a practice to know who to believe, what to do. And so, and at the end of the day, they just say, you know what, screw it. Staff members got it. I'm a part of these buying groups, and hope for the best, when it doesn't have to be that way. You can strategically utilize, certain buying groups, and then on top of that, just have the technology layer to know what's happening and have better visibility into that ordering process, to then create the efficiency.
Now, do you find that most of your customers are more sole practitioners? Do you feel like DSOs are still benefiting by using your guys' platform because they already have negotiated their own pricing for their own DSOs? Who is your consumer?
Yeah, private practice is our focus. So we're, we looked at the market, and obviously we love, DSOs, OSOs. We've got, some that we work with, but the market is, especially in ortho, it is private practice. All of the energy around, and Davin, I'd be interested in your thoughts on this as well, but for all of the energy and talks and, attention around DSOs and OSOs, still not even barely a majority, 80, 85% plus of practices are private. And so that's where we decided to place our focus. And so there are certain financial features that the CFO of 1,000 practice DSO would love to see in details that we are probably not going to build anytime soon. Right.
Yeah.
Because it's not helping the staff member who's actively doing the ordering and the doctor. Now, that said, we launched our MVP in 2022, and now we're at just under 200 practices, 350 offices, something like that. So we've had to actually build technology on our side, like the back end, to support that many practices ordering that a DSO or OSO would love to use, because there's no systems out there that are being built knowing what it's like to actually manage procurement for this many practices. There's lots of like white labelable ordering, and procurement systems and marketplaces. None of them are actively managing the orders, millions of dollars of orders a month. Right. And so when you do that, there's other considerations that come into play, which then helps us create a better experience for the end user. Like, so that your staff member, Dr. Ashley, that's doing ordering, like we're thinking of them first and foremost, and you as a doctor. What helps this is that we're majority owned by orthodontists and dentists. And so majority of our investors are actually customers of Details. So as a result, I get phone calls at 6 a.m. and 11 at night when there's like new ideas and feature requests and that kind of thing. But it means there's an awesome flywheel to just like make the product better. And so from that to partnerships with, great consultants, we're able to just continue to improve the platform. And so DSOs and OSOs are a natural kind of customer for someone like us, just because they are looking for improving efficiency around the supplies, but we don't seek them out. We seek primarily private practice.
Got it. Well, that was so great. Is there anything last that you want to kind of share, Davin? Any last comments?
Yeah, I've got another question actually, because
Sure.
we had talked about before that we want to talk through like kind of current events and tariffs. That was actually Dr. Ashley's idea, but I
Sure.
think, can you shed some light? Because I think there are a lot of people concerned, and maybe some unnecessarily concerned, maybe some real concerns. I don't really know. I know it's not really affecting our business a lot, or customers of ours aren't really seeing anything there related to our products, but just generally in the market, are these tariffs having an impact, and is there anything else in the market that's kind of having an impact?
Sure.
Pricing otherwise.
Yeah. Great question. I mean, it's a naturally on a lot of people's minds. So just we're in May. As of today, the U.S. or as of whenever, I think it was this month, maybe last month, U.S. has a 90-day, tariff agreement in place with China. So that's kind of like, I think, calmed a lot of people's fears, and seeing some rationality there, and that there's a bigger picture kind of strategy taking place. The funny thing is that when we started getting questions about it was like 3 months after we were talking to suppliers about it and manufacturers about it, because they actually started to preload like higher pricing. So some of the price list and formularies that they were sending out end of last year, start of this year, was already taking into account potential tariffs. And there kind of is a number of different people who, in terms of how people handle that. Some manufacturers and distributors would just pass that on directly to the customers, and they would say that. There's others who would not pass that on, or they would eat part of it. And then there's a kind of a third group who describe their strategy as like, oh, this is an opportunity for us to increase our pricing, and it's not going back down. So like there's actually distributors and manufacturers who are like, oh, great, I can take advantage of this, and now my price is here and it's going to stay here. And so, I mean, that's a shitty situation to be in, right? If you're a practice and those are the three options.
So,
but
do you think us as orthodontists have already seen those price increases and we just aren't even aware of it yet?
Yes. Yeah, I would say now anything could happen going forward, because who knows what will happen with the market. But some number of manufacturers I can share, and distributors had already started baking that in. Maybe they hadn't baked in the full weight of tariffs. There's a lot of them that were kind of in a wait and see mode. I would definitely say though, like before I say anything else, like take a step back, take a deep breath, you probably don't need to do anything right this second. Anything could happen. Probably tomorrow, there'll be an announcement that like the trade deal's off, like pricing's going up, and I'll, have to come back on and, give mea culpa. But, but more often than not, just what I've seen over the last, handful of years doing this. And then our team has over 100 years of procurement experience. And what we've seen more often than not is that people overcorrect and they bulk buy. And then actually it turns out like 4 months later, actually the pricing is down below even where you did your bulk buy. So, and so it's definitely, we're in a wait and see mode when it comes to tariffs, any further impact of tariffs. In a lot of cases, you've already seen an impact. Obviously there's some people that had manufacturing facilities in Mexico that are now probably moving them to the States. So it's hard to say what's going to happen over the course of the next 12 months and 24 months. Mm-hmm. But as of right now, like if you can, I guess a good way to put it would be like standard advice and rules apply. Like if you can bulk buy something and you have the storage for it, you don't mind shelling out the cash now, and it's going to get you a better deal and discount, then I mean, if you would do that, if there weren't tariffs, then it makes sense to do that now, right? So maybe lead into that a little bit more.
But don't bulk buy just because we predict there's something coming.
We're not seeing anything that would indicate that people need to do that. No. Okay. In general, I would say we're seeing the opposite. We're seeing more people are like, okay, they're letting out that deep breath. They're like, okay, I think we're okay. But things could change. It does bring up a interesting point that like when we started getting questions about this, and even before that, like last year, we were like, all right, we really need to make sure we have a good handle on who manufactures things in the US because, there's two options there. Bulk buy stuff that's price is going to go all over the place, or buy something made in America where like you're not going to have those tariffs. Impact, right? And so we at least want to make sure that we know what those options are. So, especially again, almost everything I'm talking about here is like for the stuff where the doctor doesn't have a preference, right? Yeah. You would prefer these purple gloves, but like, would you pay twice as much for them? Like, no. Would you pay 10% more for them? Probably not. Right. So there's kind of two categories. I would say there's stuff where there's a doctor preference around this item. In that case, then like be a little bit more intentional, proactive, and strategic, and we can help a practice do that around saying, hey, I'm not going to stop using these, brackets or aligners that I know are manufactured overseas. They're the ones I want to use. So what's the best strategy that I can deploy to make sure that I don't get screwed, right? If pricing suddenly jumps. We're happy to help them. For the practice, it's like, well, actually, I feel that way about this category. Everything else, I just want reliability, solid product, preferably, never gray market, right? We recommend that. Stay away from that sort of thing. But there's some practices that were like, yeah, actually, I would prefer something made in the States that I know is going to get here faster, is not going to have price increases, et cetera. So happy to help them craft their own strategy as well. But no reason for an emergency.
Okay. Are you seeing the U.S. companies kind of raising their prices? Because I know in other industries we're kind of seeing that where the U.S. companies are like, well, it's all about supply and demand. All of a sudden people want U.S. because of the non-tariffs. Well, we're going to raise our prices anyway because now, we're more in demand. Have you just seen that at all with your guys' U.S. vendors changing?
I've seen, I would say that I've seen a little bit of that conversation. Nothing egregious, I would say. Okay. I will say, this is going to be a random shout out, but G&H Orthodontics, they're a manufacturer in Indiana. Mm-hmm. And they have been the most impressive out of most people that I've talked to. Very transparent with their customers, very proactive. Most of their stuff is is manufactured here in Indiana. And their strategy has been extraordinarily customer doctor beneficial. But more than anything, like just the transparency, like, hey, here's what we're seeing. Here's what we plan to do in light of that. And by the way, it may not even get to step 2, but our step 1 is this. if it gets to step 2, here's what we're thinking. Just extraordinarily reasonable in terms of how to handle this. Where, I mean, there are some companies where like a practice literally can't talk to a human, right?
Oh,
and they're like massive, and they're like massive companies. And so just that like, not only that you could get a hold of someone, you know, but also like they're being very transparent in terms of what, you know, their plans are, which by the way, are the best plans of anyone that I've heard, right? In terms of not raising pricing and that kind of stuff. So,
I would also add, that if you're a doctor who has a question, reach out to your suppliers. Now I can't speak to everybody on which ones can talk to a real person or not, but you know, if you have a rep or you have a contact, reach out to them and just ask, what is your strategy around pricing and tariffs? And what are you guys thinking? And have a conversation. Because I know most of, you know, if they're a supplier that has your best interest at heart, they're definitely going to be willing to communicate that information to you and work a strategy with you.
Absolutely.
What is Wild Smiles? Yeah.
I was going to say Wild Smiles would be one example. Like,
well,
pick up the phone and call Davin.
Yeah. Well, yeah, absolutely. Reach out to me anytime. We've had multiple of these conversations. You know, we launched with a price about 20 years ago when we first launched and never raised it until about 2 years ago. And we raised it like not even a full dollar a bracket. And we haven't really, we're US, you know, our supply chain is US. And so we fall into, I don't know which category you mentioned, Nick, but, you know, we fall into the category. Yeah. Well, yeah. And I think we haven't seen a need to raise our prices. So we haven't. And we only raised our prices after being in business for 15 years, because we actually did an analysis and realized that we actually needed to raise our prices, but we, relative to our costs, that we were seeing, and we just hadn't really looked at that, honestly, because we weren't.
Well, from a consumer, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, because, you know, I hear the conversation so much. It's like, okay, we'll just raise your prices. And, you know, for the practices that are out of network, then that's great. But, you know, a lot of us, I'm contracted with PPOs. So the more I raise my prices, that's hurting just the small percentage of my cash patients. And that's just more money that I'm writing off each year. So, you know, for those of us that play the insurance game, you know, that's not a strategy that we can employ.
Yeah, I would say that, though, I would advocate, not because I'm a supplier who's saying you should raise your prices because I want to raise mine, but just as an industry, we should have a frank and open conversation about fees and insurance, because, and I think
let's bring an insurancer. We need to bring Delta on.
Yeah.
Well, I kind of want to be the host. I want to be the host interviewing you two now, because I feel like Davin's stepping up in a soapbox, and like I want to hand him a little like step stool, you know.
No. I don't want to be that, but I think that is a conversation, you know. And as a podcast, I definitely think I think we should bring on somebody for insurance, because that's a conversation I'd love to have with people.
Yeah.
So,
costs are getting more, and they're telling us they're going to pay less. I mean, at a point, I wish we could all just unite and just drop them all together. That would be the end goal.
Drop insurance or drop prices?
No, drop insurances. Us all collectively decide as orthodontists to drop them all and give them the special finger.
Well, that's a conversation we'll have with an insurance somebody.
Let's find CEO of Delta to come on.
Well, Nick, we are so thankful that you were willing to share your expertise. I know that, you know, inventory, supplies, all that overhead is a big concern with every business. And so having you come on and share some strategies, I know our listeners will find super helpful. So thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes,
thanks for having me, Dr. Ashley. Great to meet you. And Davin, love Wild Smiles and what you're doing there. So appreciate the invite.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate it. Until next time. Are you looking to grow practice revenue, improve patient retention, and enhance overall practice success in 2025? Join our faculty of leading practitioners, all experts in the crossover of orthodontics and pediatric dentistry, at one of 3 hands-on courses designed to equip orthodontist and pediatric dentist with essential knowledge and tools to establish and implement a successful Phase 1 bracket program to keep more patients in-house and grow your practice. Participants will be given a comprehensive roadmap to build a robust early treatment program and will be able to apply these strategies to their practice immediately. Whether you're looking to implement an early orthodontic treatment program for the first time or enhance your current offerings, this course provides the tools and knowledge to help you grow your practice and provide top quality care for younger patients. For more information on locations and dates, and to sign up, visit specialtyappliances.com/course/registration. Registration is open, and these in-office courses have limited space that will fill fast. So more information can be found again at specialtyappliances.com/course/registration.
Thank you for listening to the Kids Biz podcast. We hope you gained valuable insights to elevate your practice. If you enjoyed the episode, please take a moment to leave us a review. It really helps us grow. Want to dive deeper into our community? Join the Kids Biz Facebook group for discussions, resources, and networking with fellow professionals. Until next time, keep striving for success in your ortho and pediatric practice.